for me, maybe I overstated a little. I'm optimistic or cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, cautious. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and in part I am because, like, for me, about when I think about police brutality, I've taught criminal law 20 times, worked in the Justice Department a couple of times. Like, police brutality is an endemic feature of what I know and study. And what's great about this set of events, which is a horrible set of events to be going through, but the good thing about it is it's shining that spotlight, Mike, that you're talking about. And I think, yes, Brian, it's, really hard to change, right, to have attitude shifts become policy shifts, but ultimately they do. And, in just the changing of attitudes, I think is so important, to have all of these really diehard conservative people coming out and saying, God, look at what the police are doing. And, if this would have happened to me, if I were, of a different skin color, but I'm not, so I don't have to live this way. I mean, it reminds me of, Brian, one of the more significant things like that I've seen in fiction on TV, which is your writing of the character Taylor Mason. I grew up, I think, with a lot of people who made fun of gender non-binary people. And you wrote that character now, I think, some years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And that was a lot of people's first exposure to seeing that. And you really help people understand the lived experience of people who aren't like themselves. So I'm like optimistic that, that this is going to change that and expose more people.
I really want you to be right. And I agree. I'm an optimist by nature. America was just founded, and you've read your history, on this original sin. And it's difficult to figure out how we appropriately remediate that and change. I want us to desperately. Well, I'm fascinated that the two of my smartest friends, Mike, I'm just saying, I felt I should lump you in. You know what I mean? It felt like the right thing to do.
Read the room.
Have optimism. Because I'm a little older than both of you, I have a hard time understanding how structural change is going to happen, really. Like when I saw that New York police guy today, the president, not Pat Lynch, the other one, O'Meara, speaking, there's some version of that rap that's been given for 100 years. And instead of going, we have to change, it's like, we don't have to change. We're not like those bad cops. And so right. I don't know where I find where you guys are finding the optimism.
I'll say one thing about this, Brian, which is, I actually wrote a chapter in my book about how profound an effect the movie Spotlight had on me, which is our friend Tom McCarthy directed this brilliant movie, Spotlight, which I believe is, in some ways, the metaphoric movie of our times, which is to say the Me Too movement is about a spotlight shining. The Catholic Church abuses is about a spotlight shining, which is what the movie's about. And the discussion of police in America right now is a spotlight shining on systemic racism. And so if you look at the movie Spotlight and what it's depicting, there was change that occurred in the Catholic Church from that. And I don't think you have to be Catholic to understand that movie and to be affected by that movie and to think about, even if your child isn't an altar boy, like I was an altar boy. And so that movie had this really, really profound effect on me. When I saw it, I talk about this in the book, but when I saw it, I cried so hard watching that movie. It was like no film experience I've ever had. I just crying. I had to turn it off and assure my wife that I was not abused as an altar boy as a child, because I was an altar boy. But there's something about the Me Too movement, about the discussion of the Catholic Church and Spotlight, to me, and the discussion of systemic racism in the police force in America, that it's all interconnected. And a lot of times, people in entertainment, people in comedy, they get very upset because in these movements, there is collateral damage. There is like people get accused of things, and then maybe that didn't end up being entirely true. Maybe these cops are being lumped in together, but there are some good cops, et cetera. There's collateral damage. I think as a country, we have to come to a point where we accept that, yeah, there's collateral damage in something that is far, far more damaging to far more people and needs to be corrected.
I had this experience at Spotlight. I love hearing about that movie. I mean, because, you know, I saw that movie. Tom showed it to me months before it was finished. And I was not an altar boy. And it was one of the craziest, most beautiful experiences seeing a film I ever had in my life, because there were only 3 people in the room. And I knew I was watching a movie that was going to win the Academy Award. I walked out of the thing, and I said to Levine, wasn't there. And I called him. And I said, Dave, Levine's my partner, creative partner. I said, Dave, I just saw a movie that does everything we've ever wanted to do. Like, it does all the things you want to do.
Yeah, it's all the things. Yeah.
And I was like, I have no ambition greater than that movie. Like, there's not big set pieces. That's the ambition. We were at 2 editing rooms over cutting the Billions pilot. And
I remember that.
And that's how, and then Tom was like, hey, come in and watch. Yeah, because then
because I watched the Billions pilot with you and Tom McCarthy.
And Tom McCarthy early. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
At night, of course. So I understand, and I love that example, the way they uncovered that, and they were able to change a couple of institutions that way. And I'm not pessimistic. I just am finding a hard time. As I said right before we started, you know, if the administration shifts, then I think that will send the right kind of message.
You have to believe that you have to be something of an optimist. You wouldn't write the way you write, I think, if you thought that, you know.
I'm a huge optimist by nature. Trump might have like changed that. Him winning, Trump shifting really might have changed something.
Mike, can I ask you about playing in Billions? Because you fall in love in the show with Taylor Mason. Did you have any worries about, having some impact on your career and affect your image or anything like that? I mean, I'm on Team Taylor. You can see I've got the shirt. But at least, I'm not sure you're on the show on Team Taylor anymore. But
apparently, yeah. I get people complain at me on Twitter as though I am the character. No, I did. Career worries, no. Anxiety. I think Asia and I both had anxiety that we kind of expressed to each other privately about just doing a lot. I think this is something that's people don't talk about a lot. Doing love scenes in general is very uncomfortable. Like, it's very uncomfortable, and it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or gender non-binary person. It's so intimate and then filmed and from all different angles, and then you do it again and again. I mean, like, when you watch a love scene in a movie, you don't realize that basically that scene they shot for 11 hours again and again and again. So it's not really like if it was in one take, that'd be from five. It's the again and again and it's just nerve-wracking because it's so it's intimate. The cameras are tight on you, and I don't know. That was my experience of it. I
can't even imagine like doing that. I mean, I think even just you having to portray a schlumpy VC from San Francisco's got to be tough enough, but to do it naked is a whole other thing.
Well, schlumpy is something I bring to a lot of my roles, and it's sort of a decision I usually make at the outset, because usually I'm about 160. I have a high degree of muscle mass. Sometimes I bring it up to 200 and I lose the muscle mass for the parts. And sometimes I don't. And, Brian and I had a long talk over a 4.5 pizzas one night, and we decided let's go schlumpy.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know how much pie I had to eat for that role? Do you know how many milkshakes I had to drink to be Oscar Langstrat?
Yeah. Thanks for watching The New Normal. Stay tuned for more from Mike Birbiglia and Brian Koppelman in the coming days. If you haven't already, follow me on Instagram and hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Never miss a new episode.